It is Fury Road in 1926.
A non-stop roller coaster ride of Buster Keaton doing insane shit. So you have just watched your first full-length silent picture, and the one that you watched is by the legendary Buster Keaton, who was a writer, director, actor, and stuntman. Just to give a quick summary for people who haven't seen it, it's actually pretty basic. It's set during the Civil War. He has this train that's important to him. It gets stolen. Then we have a Mad Max Fury Road chase for most of the movie, and there's a big fight, and that's the end. So, to you.
It is Fury Road in 1926.
A non-stop roller coaster ride of Buster Keaton doing insane shit.
He's just as much as an action hero as Sylvester Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger, but he's more so because he's actually doing the stunts himself, some of which he could have been killed, horribly killed.
Dozens of times in this movie.
Not falling killed, like run over by slow-moving trains killed.
Yeah, it's nuts. I mean, of course, when you watch them, it's astonishing that he's doing the things that he's doing, because you realize that he's in genuine danger. But each gag, each stunt actually tells its own little story. They're sort of funny and delightful at the same time too, and they kind of advance the story as they go along. Like, one of my favorite bits in this is the railroad ties.
Yeah, that is, aside from one other scene, that scene is insane. He has to run in front of the train while the train's moving, and he has to hurry up and pull one of them out from the thing, and the train's moving. So even though it's a gag, he still can't mess up the gag or he'll get run over by a train. Then he picks it up and he sits on the plow, and then there's another one, and he has to time it perfectly to hit it on the side so it'll flop the other one up in the air and get it off at the same time. If he did that on one take, that's just insane. There were such awesome shots of them following the train. They're following the train with a camera, and I'm thinking, this is too steady. These shots are too steady to be following. So all I can think of is there was another train running alongside the other train in order to get these shots. It couldn't be in a car. It couldn't be on horseback.
Well, it could, but it would require another set of tracks next to it to be doing that.
Right. So what the heck was it? My favorite scene is the cannon scene.
I was just gonna bring that up. Yeah.
Could you imagine not getting that done in one take? Like every time you screw that up.
Right. Yeah. There's this terrific shot from behind the cannon that Buster is finagling with the whole time, and it swings around. There's sort of this curve, and then the other train is off in the distance coming around the curve. As he's sort of bouncing around the train and all that, the cannon the cannon sort of drops into position, and the cannon goes off, boom, and then there's just that like perfect pause, and then the explosion all the way out in the distance of that. And yeah, the timing had to be impeccable. And this is long before they had days with like electronic switches and computer timing and stuff like that. They just had to get it right. And if they didn't get it right, they had these actual trains
that they had
to get back in position. It's nuts.
And all the cool scenes weren't just action scenes. Like when he was under the table where he's looking through the hole, the tablecloth, and how that's like kind of more of a special effect. Like obviously it's not his eye, and obviously that's not her looking through the peephole, but just that they had to like figure that out. And
they literally constructed a trestle bridge and lit it on fire and then crashed the train into a river. Hundreds to thousands of extras, because there's a whole big Civil War battle that's going on around it at the same time. They actually lit this bridge on fire, crashed the train into the river, and very famously, they left it there until during World War II, it got yanked out for scrap because they needed the metal.
Oh, okay.
Even all that kind of stuff aside, from just pure entertainment, I feel like it's just such a joy to watch. It's so fun.
It's not slow at all. Like it would keep a kid's attention nowadays because it's just non-stop. It doesn't even matter that there's no talking because you don't need any talking.
It's purely visual. And I think that's something that the best silent films are really great at. And though you could lean on title cards, the heavier they lean on title cards, the less impact they
it slows things down a little bit.
You know, I think something for silent era pictures that drives some people up a wall when they catch a glimpse of them, how expressionistic the actors tend to be. But that's for a reason, obviously. It's,
Right.
you know, it's to get across this stuff visually.
You
Except for
didn't-
Buster Keaton, who was not very expressionistic. He was known as the Great Stone Face, I think was.
Yeah, but it's great because he's so dry, he's so deadpan that it works.
I think in a lot of ways that enhances the impact of the stunts that he does too. There's one bit where he jumps from the cannon car to the locomotive, and his foot gets caught on a chain, and he's trying to get himself untangled from the chain, and all this stuff. He has to be so precise in his movements. If he slips up, you know, he could be seriously injured or killed. And meanwhile, he's doing this all without breaking character.
For anybody who's watching this, if you can get actually, it's playing on YouTube in high def for free.
Yeah, it's in the public domain.
Yeah, at this point, right? I mean, there's literally no reason not to just watch it. If somebody's watching this and they've never seen it, just go watch it. It's like an hour long and it's just insane.
Yeah, fire up YouTube. There's multiple versions on YouTube. You think of silent movies, you think that they're just black and white, but they actually would do color tinting at the time. Like in The General, for instance, when he's sneaking into the Union headquarters and all that, it's happening at night, and the film is tinted a dark blue.
Yeah, that was
opposed to as opposed to like the brown sepia tones that most of the picture is, like the daytime scenes as well.
Yeah, I did like the nighttime scenes, how they kind of had that blue color to them to kind of sell that it was the night. Oh, okay. So these are some of the things I wrote down along the way. It was a misunderstanding trope. I like that was going on all the way back in 1926.
Yes.
The bike. Why was that even like a design from the get-go with the big wheels? Is that like a horse height thing or something? I was curious that he was helping the South in a movie from the 1926, and like there had to be a reason, I assume.
He was a Kansas guy. I don't know enough about him, sort of his personal life and personal views to know if that was a choice for a reason. In a book on the subject, the film was inspired to some extent by The Great Locomotive Chase, an 1863 memoir about an actual kind of great locomotive chase. At one point, Keaton suggested that in the book, right, the Yankees were heroes and the Southerners were villains, and Keaton feared that movie audiences wouldn't accept that idea. There may be something being unsaid there. There is some online criticism of The General that suggests that it's kind of it's soft on the Confederacy, and maybe we should be looking at it with a more critical eye in that respect. The people who are interested in it should check it out if they want to kind of get that context. But yeah, like my own personal knowledge doesn't go any further than that. I really can't speak to it, and I don't think that we're prepared to dive into that. And I do want to be clear when we're talking about this, or speaking at least certainly only for myself, but I think maybe I can speak for you as well. We're not attempting to dance around the issue. We think the whole movement to like bring back pride in being Confederates is a bunch of BS, but we're talking about the movie as art and entertainment, not the messages that may be being sent by pussyfooting around the Confederate issue.
But that aside, like I said, I still think it's worth watching. I still think that people should just watch it. It is a good action movie.
Yes, it really is. Yeah, for people who don't have a lot of experience watching silent movies, who haven't seen many or haven't seen any, I agree with Tig. This possibly should be your very first step, because it is just such a straightforward, a fun and enjoyable movie. And I wasn't kidding when I said it was basically the Mad Max Fury Road of its day.
Yeah, it is. That's what it is. You said this movie didn't do good when it came out?
No, it didn't. Yeah, it was not a big hit. It took years for it to gain the reputation that it has.
I wonder why. Like, were they sick of Buster Keaton kind of thing, or?
Like Keaton had been a big star for years prior to this, and this one didn't do well, and like his star was kind of fading at around this time. This is just on the cusp of when talkies became big. Kids wanted like the talkies and stuff like that. Yeah, like Keaton's shtick was falling by the wayside, and he actually his career just utterly evaporated after this.
Jeez.
Just about his last hurrah.
seems like a masterpiece in again, going off one movie, silent movie I've ever seen in my life. I have just one more thing before we're done. When he accidentally kills the sniper, when the sword, falls apart, he accidentally kills the sniper. His character, like Indiana Jones style, he never kills anybody on purpose. It's like always an accident.
I'm glad that you bring up Indiana Jones because don't you think that obviously Spielberg and Lucas were influenced by the serials of this era and all that, and don't you think that some of Indy's physical stuff was influenced by things like this? He's just barely getting by. He's sort of like a regular guy who is fumbling his way through these intense. You can see the influence of this Buster Keaton stuff decades and decades later in modern action movies.
My son came down to go to bed late last night, and I just watched it again with him while he fell asleep, because I was like, you got to watch this. This is just crazy. He was watching the cannon scene. Like, he was actually getting anxious because he realized that the guy could die.
Yeah, that's one of the joys of watching this, is you actually do get anxious because you're like, no, you can't be doing that.
He didn't, but you still get anxious almost 100 years later.
I'm really glad you enjoyed this, though I honestly had no doubt that you would. This was one that, even though it's like, oh, I'm going to give him like a silent movie, like, I was like, nah, he's definitely going to like it.
This is an easy one.
I do want to make some other recommendations for people who might be interested in diving into some silent cinema. Certainly 1927's Metropolis by Fritz Lang, which is a huge, sprawling science fiction epic with some jaw-dropping special effects and a really intense story. The only caveat with this is that there are so many versions out there because a lot of the footage was lost over the years. Look for, I think it's from 2003, the Kino Restored Edition, or from 2010, also released by Kino. I think they call it Metropolis the Complete Edition or something like that. Those are the most complete versions of the movie. Charlie Chaplin's City Lights from 1931 is one of Chaplin's great classics. Some people like The Gold Rush better, which is from 1925, but I think City Lights, if you're going to watch a Charlie Chaplin movie, that's the one you should watch. F.W. Murnau's Nosferatu, which I mentioned earlier, from 1922. It is a haunting, beautifully shot, super uber creepy horror movie. Carl Theodor Dreyer from 1928, The Passion of Joan of Arc. For my money, one of the greatest films of all time. It's a harrowing, difficult watch. The Passion of Joan of Arc is like a movie-long torture scene. Battleship Potemkin, which kind of invented montage and was really influential to tons and tons of movies, and a bunch of others. I don't want to just like keep going.
You could go on and on.
Yeah. Oh, and I'm sorry. And I can't believe I forget this one. 1927, Alfred Hitchcock's The Lodger. It's basically a Jack the Ripper movie. It was Hitchcock's third movie, but it's really the first true Alfred Hitchcock movie.
Oh, okay.
So most of the ones that I mentioned actually are in the public domain, so you should be able to find all of them on YouTube. Excellent, which means that you are going to be introducing our historic 20th episode.
Oh no, that puts a little bit of pressure on me in some weird way.
So what am I gonna have to watch? What are we talking about for episode 20?
So you, Eric, for our 20th episode, we'll be watching the 1998 movie with Johnny Depp, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Richest off-road race for motorcycles and dune buggies in the history of organized sport.
Are you ready for that? Checking into a Vegas hotel under a phony name with intent to commit capital fraud and a head full of acid? I sure hope so.
God bless.
We were riding the crest of a high and beautiful wave.
Cool. This is another one that's been on my list for a while. Cool. Sounds good. Then I will watch that and get back to you. We'll talk about it for episode number 20.
Leave us some comments. Let us know what you think about this movie if you watched it, or any silent movies that maybe you've watched, or even suggestions of silent movies for us to watch, especially me, because I have seen one.